All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to deconstruct a field that honestly shapes so much of what we see and believe, but it often works kind of in the shadows. We're talking about public relations, and we're going to map out its fundamental architecture.
So, when you hear the letters PR, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, it's this idea of a spin doctor, someone frantically trying to clean up a mess. But what if we looked at it a different way? Let's challenge that stereotype. What if we thought of a PR pro less as a doctor and more as a strategic architect? Someone who is carefully, methodically designing and building an organization's most valuable asset, its reputation.
Okay, so to really understand how that structure gets built, we have to start at the very bottom. We've got to lay a solid foundation. So let's get right to it. What is public relations, really?
Okay, here it is. This is kind of the cornerstone definition from our source material, and let's just break this down for a second. The keywords here are huge: deliberate and strategic. This stuff doesn't happen by accident. Managing communication. This is an active, ongoing thing. And for what purpose? Well, to build trust, shape perception, and maintain relationships. This single idea, this is the bedrock for everything else we're going to talk about.
So, with our foundation set, it's time to put up the main supports, the core pillars that hold this whole thing up. And in PR, those pillars are the key relationships that an organization absolutely has to build and take care of.
And this is where you really start to see just how wide the net is cast. PR isn't just about talking to the media. No way. It's about communicating with your own employees, your internal team. It's about your customers, your investors, the government regulators, and, even the community that you operate in. Every single one of these groups is a different pillar, and each one needs its own unique conversation.
So how do you keep all those pillars strong? Well, the tools are pretty straightforward, but they're not easy. It all comes down to communication that is clear, consistent, and, this is the most important one, credible. That's how you build that trust we were talking about, and without that trust, the whole structure is just going to crumble.
I love this slide because it draws such a clear line in the sand between PR and its really famous cousin, advertising. Think about it. Advertising is basically a megaphone. It's a one-way street, just pushing a message out. But public relations, that's a dialogue. It's a two-way conversation. A good PR strategy has to listen just as much as it talks, and it has to be ready to respond and adapt. That listening part, that's the whole ballgame.
So, how does all this actually happen? Well, amazing buildings don't just spring up out of nowhere, right? They start with a really detailed blueprint. And it's the exact same thing with good PR. It's all about crafting that strategic plan before you ever make a single move.
And here's what that blueprint looks like in practice. It's a really simple but powerful four-step cycle. First, you got to do your homework. That's the research. Who are we talking to? What are we trying to achieve? Then you plan. You design a campaign to hit those goals. After that, you execute. You actually do the thing. And finally, and this is so critical, you evaluate. Did it work? What can we learn? And then the whole cycle starts over, making sure you're always getting smarter.
Of course, any architect needs a solid set of tools to actually build something. A PR professional is no different. So let's peek inside the modern communication toolkit they're using to bring those blueprints to life.
And just look at this mix. Yeah, you've still got the traditional stuff, newspapers, TV, radio, but now you're blending that with a whole universe of digital platforms, a massive social media presence, and, let's not forget, the simple power of talking to people face to face. A really smart strategy uses all of these, because different people hang out in different places. You've got to meet them where they are if you want to build a reputation that's truly solid.
And, we have to pause on social media for a second, because it has been a total game changer. It allows for that two-way dialogue we talked about, but now it happens in real time, instantly. It's become the place for direct engagement, for putting out fires quickly during a crisis, and for actually building a real community around a brand or an idea.
Okay, we've got our foundation, we've got our pillars, our blueprint, and our tools. But what holds it all together? What's the mortar in between the bricks that gives the whole building its strength and integrity? Well, that would be the ethical compass.
Man, this quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? It's the perfect counterargument to that spin doctor stereotype we started with. The goal isn't to manipulate or twist the truth. It's about honest-to-goodness communication. Because without that commitment, any trust you manage to build is just going to fall apart.
And here's the bottom line. Ethics are not just some optional feature, like a nice-to-have. They are absolutely essential. Transparency and integrity, those are the raw materials you have to use if you want to build trust and loyalty that actually lasts. There are simply no shortcuts. So, when all of these pieces finally come together, you've got the foundation, the pillars, the blueprint, the tools, all held together by that ethical mortar. What do you have? You get the finished structure. You get the incredible power of a well-managed perception and a rock-solid reputation.
And this is the payoff. This is why it all matters so much. The impact is huge. A strong reputation fosters trust with everybody, from your employees to your investors. That trust creates real loyalty, which in turn drives the success of the organization. And hey, it can even lead to a positive impact on society as a whole.
If you take away just one thing from all this, let it be these 3 actions. This is the core purpose, the absolute heart of public relations: building trust, shaping reputation, and sustaining those crucial relationships for the long haul.
So I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. We are all living in a world that is just flooded with messages crafted by these strategic architects every single day. So the question is, in all of this constant noise, who is architecting what you believe?